She let him stay one night in her barn. He came back with a lawyer and a shocking offer. Olivia Morgan pulled her flannel tighter around her shoulders as another gust of wind rattled the farmhouse windows. Outside, rain pummeled the tin roof of the old barn, creating a symphony of metallic drumming that normally would have lulled her to sleep. Tonight, however, sleep remained elusive. The weather forecast had predicted a storm, but not this, not the kind of tempest that threatened to tear ancient apple trees from the ground and wash away what little remained of her hopes for a decent harvest. She glanced at the framed photograph on her nightstand, her father standing proudly among rows of apple trees in full bloom, his weathered face creased in a smile. "What would you do, Dad?" she whispered, touching the glass gently. "Save what's left of your dream or admit defeat?" The barking of her border collie, Scout, interrupted her thoughts. Not his usual playful bark, but something urgent, alarmed. Olivia frowned, reaching for the flashlight she kept by her bed. Scout never barked at nothing. Thunder cracked overhead as she made her way downstairs, pulling on rubber boots and a raincoat. The barking continued, more insistent now, coming from the direction of the old dirt road that curved along the eastern edge of the orchard. "Scout," she called, swinging open the door and stepping onto the porch. The rain immediately assaulted her, cold and sharp. Scout stood at the edge of the property, his body rigid, barking at something, or someone, on the ground. Heart pounding, Olivia approached, flashlight beam cutting through sheets of rain. A figure lay crumpled at the base of the old oak tree that marked the beginning of her property. Not moving. "Hello?" she called, Scout growling beside her. The figure stirred, rolling slightly to reveal a man's face, pale and streaked with mud. One leg was bent at an awkward angle, and he clutched at his ankle. "Don't come any closer," the man grunted, attempting to push himself up against the tree trunk. "I just need to catch my breath." Olivia kept her distance, but trained the flashlight directly on him. He was in his mid-30s, perhaps, with dark hair plastered to his forehead and a 3-day stubble on his jaw. His hiking clothes were expensive but soaked through, and a backpack lay nearby. "This is private property," she said, trying to keep her voice firm despite the tremor of uncertainty. "The nearest town is 5 miles back." "I know," he winced, shifting his weight. "I was on the ridge trail when the storm hit. Lost my footing on the descent." He gestured vaguely toward the hills that rose behind her orchard. "I'm not looking for trouble. Just shelter until this passes." Olivia hesitated. The man didn't look threatening, just injured and exhausted. But years of living alone had taught her caution. "Scout," she commanded softly, and the dog moved closer to the stranger, sniffing cautiously. After a moment, Scout's tail wagged tentatively, not a full welcome, but not a warning either. "My dog's a better judge of character than I am," Olivia said, taking a step forward. "Can you walk?" The man attempted to stand but fell back with a sharp intake of breath. "Not well," he admitted. Sighing, Olivia moved to his side. "Put your arm around my shoulder. The barn's closer than the house." "Thank you," he said, his voice barely audible above the storm. "I'm Liam. Liam Westfield." "Olivia Morgan," she replied, bracing herself as he leaned his weight against her. "This is Scout. And this," she nodded toward the darkened orchard beyond, "is what's left of Morgan Apple Orchard." Together they limped toward the barn, Scout circling them protectively. Inside, the air smelled of hay and aged wood, familiar and somehow safe. "Guest quarters," Olivia said wryly, gesturing to a clean pile of hay. "I'll get some dry blankets and take a look at that ankle." As she turned to leave, his voice stopped her. "You don't know me. Why help?" Olivia paused, looking back at the stranger, Liam, his face half hidden in shadow. "Because my father would never turn away someone in need," she answered simply. "Even when we needed help ourselves." Outside, the storm raged on, but for the first time in months, Olivia felt something shift inside her, a quiet reminder that even in the most unexpected moments, humanity could surprise you. Whether that was good or bad remained to be seen. Morning arrived with gentle persistence, sunlight filtering through the barn's weathered boards. Olivia balanced a tray of coffee and toast as she approached, finding Liam already awake, his injured ankle propped on a bale of hay. "Brought breakfast," she said, setting the tray down. "How's the ankle?" "Better than it deserves to be," he replied, accepting the coffee with gratitude. "Your first aid skills are impressive." Olivia shrugged. "When you live this far out, you learn to handle things yourself." She watched as he took a sip, noticing the way the morning light highlighted flecks of gray at his temples despite his relatively young face. Something about him seemed both weathered and scholarly, not the typical hiker who wandered through these parts. "I should call someone for you," she offered. "Family? Friends?" Liam shook his head. "No need to trouble anyone. I've got a rental car in town. Once I can put weight on this ankle, I'll be out of your hair." Scout trotted in, immediately going to Liam and nudging his hand for attention. "Traitor," Olivia muttered, but there was no bite to her words. "Your orchard," Liam began, scratching Scout behind the ears. It looked struggling. Even in the dark. Olivia stiffened. "It's been a difficult few years." "I didn't mean to offend," he said quickly. "It's just that I recognize the signs. I'm an agricultural scientist, specializing in heritage fruit varieties. I've seen the same pattern in orchards throughout the region." Olivia's interest peaked despite her wariness. "Agricultural scientist. Ph.D. from Cornell," he said, without a hint of boasting. "I've been studying the decline of heritage apple varieties across the Northeast. Your orchard, what I could see of it, has Morgan's Pride apples, doesn't it? They're increasingly rare." Olivia's eyes widened. "How could you possibly know that?" "The bark pattern, the spacing of the trees," he replied. "Plus, I've studied the Morgan cultivation methods. Your father was something of a legend in certain circles." The mention of her father caught her off guard. "You knew about him?" "Not personally," Liam admitted. "But his research on sustainable orchard management was groundbreaking. His methods for grafting techniques alone." "He never published research," Olivia interrupted, confused and suspicious. "Not formally," Liam agreed. "But in agricultural communities, knowledge travels. His methods were referenced in several academic papers I studied." Olivia sat on a hay bale, processing this information. For years, she'd believed her father was just a stubborn farmer who refused to modernize. The idea that his techniques were valued in academic circles was startling. "Would you show me?" Liam asked gently. "The orchard. I might be able to offer some insight." Reason told her to refuse, to maintain her distance from this stranger with the curious knowledge about her family. But desperation, the kind that comes from watching a legacy wither season by season, won out. "Can you walk?" With Olivia's support and a makeshift walking stick, Liam hobbled through rows of apple trees. His observations were precise, technical, but delivered with a reverence that reminded Olivia of her father. "Fire blight here," he noted, examining a withered branch. "But the rootstock is still strong. You haven't sprayed with copper compounds?" "Can't afford it," she admitted. "Everything goes to property taxes and basic maintenance." Liam nodded, understanding rather than pitying. "There are organic alternatives. Cheaper, though more labor-intensive." By midday, they had covered only a quarter of the orchard, but Liam had already identified several addressable issues. His knowledge was impressive, but it was his evident care for the trees that gradually softened Olivia's guard. "Your father was right about the northern slope cultivation," he remarked, looking up at a healthier section of trees. "It's protected them from the worst of the temperature fluctuations." "You talk about him like you knew him," Olivia said, curiosity overcoming caution. Liam hesitated, then spoke carefully. "I've studied his work. The Morgan methods represent a bridge between traditional farming wisdom and modern sustainable practices. It's why I was hiking in this region, actually, documenting heritage orchards before they disappear. As they returned to the farmhouse, Liam leaning less heavily on her now, Olivia made a decision that surprised even herself. The spare room has a proper bed, she said, nodding toward the house. Barn's no place for a healing ankle. I couldn't impose. It's not charity, she interrupted. If you're willing, I could use that agricultural expertise. The orchard, it needs help, I can't give it alone. Liam studied her face, seeming to understand the weight of what she was offering, not just shelter, but trust. I'd be honored, he said simply. That evening, as they shared a simple dinner of vegetable stew, Olivia noticed Scout sleeping contentedly at Liam's feet. The dog had always been a good judge of character, her father used to say. Perhaps, she thought, some strangers were worth the risk. The crunch of tires on gravel announced the arrival of a sleek silver sedan 3 weeks after Liam had begun helping at the orchard. Olivia, arms loaded with grafting supplies, watched as her sister Elena stepped out, designer sunglasses perched on her perfect nose. Unexpected visits usually mean bad news, Olivia called out, not bothering to hide her wariness. Elena removed her sunglasses with practiced elegance. Hello to you too, Liv. 5 years had passed since they'd last stood face to face, at their father's funeral. Elena had flown in from Chicago, expressed appropriate condolences, and departed before the reception ended. Now here she was, looking as out of place among the apple trees as a peacock in a chicken coop. What brings you out to the wilderness? Olivia asked, setting down her supplies. Can't I visit my only sister? Elena's smile didn't reach her eyes. The orchard looks quaint. Before Olivia could respond, Liam emerged from between the trees, sleeves rolled up, dirt smudging his forearms. The new grafts are taking well on the north side, he began, then noticed Elena. Oh, hello. Elena's perfectly shaped eyebrows rose. You didn't mention you had company. Liam Westfield, he introduced himself, extending a hand that Elena regarded warily before accepting. I'm helping with orchard restoration. My sister doesn't usually accept help, Elena remarked, a question in her tone. Desperate times, Olivia replied flatly. Let's go inside. In the kitchen, Elena's news emerged between sips of tea. I've been offered a partnership at the firm, she announced. But the buy-in is substantial. Congratulations, Olivia said, sensing the other shoe about to drop. I need to sell my half of the orchard. There it was. Though their father had left the orchard to both daughters, they'd agreed Olivia would manage it while Elena retained half ownership. A technicality, Olivia had thought, until now. You can't sell, Olivia said, struggling to keep her voice steady. This orchard is our heritage. It's a failing business, Elena countered. Be realistic, Liv. You've been barely keeping it afloat. Things are changing, Olivia insisted. Liam's expertise. You've known him for what, a few weeks? Elena shook her head. Northland Development has made an offer. Good money, Liv. We could both benefit. Liam, who'd been silently listening, spoke up. The heritage varieties here aren't just trees. They're living history, irreplaceable genetics. Once they're gone. Who exactly are you? Elena cut in sharply. Some drifter my sister picked up who's suddenly an orchard expert. Actually, Liam replied calmly, I've been researching heritage apple varieties for over a decade. The Morgan Pride apple alone contains genetic resistance to 3 common diseases that modern commercial varieties lack. Elena looked between them, realization dawning. You two are involved. We're colleagues, Olivia corrected quickly, ignoring the flush creeping up her neck. And he's right about the orchard's value. It's not just land. Northland wants the water rights as much as the property, Elena said, softening slightly. They're planning luxury homes with private orchards, a taste of rural living for the wealthy. That's what Dad dedicated his life to, Olivia said bitterly. Providing scenery for vacation homes. Later, after Elena had departed with a promise to consider alternatives, Olivia found Liam in the old office, surrounded by her father's journals. "I'm sorry about my sister," she said, leaning against the doorframe. "Family is complicated," he replied, looking up from the weathered notebook in his hands. "But Olivia, these journals, they're incredible. Your father documented every cross-pollination, every graft. There's decades of research here." He turned the journal toward her, revealing pages of meticulous notes and diagrams. "This could be the orchard's salvation," he said, eyes alight with possibility. "Not just preservation, but innovation." As Olivia leaned closer to examine the pages, their shoulders touched. The simple contact sent an unexpected warmth through her. "You really think we can save it?" she asked, voice barely above a whisper. "I think," Liam said carefully, "that your father left you everything you need. You just needed someone to help you see it." In that moment, surrounded by her father's words and the scent of apple blossoms drifting through the open window, Olivia felt something she hadn't experienced in years: hope. Rain pattered against the kitchen windows as Olivia stared at the documents spread across the table. Liam sat across from her, his expression unreadable. "So," she said finally, "you're not just a passing agricultural scientist." "No," he admitted. "But everything I told you about my research is true." "Except for the part where your grandfather once owned this land," Olivia countered, tapping the yellow deed he'd shown her. "The land my father purchased 30 years ago." Liam ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident. "I was going to tell you. I just needed to understand what happened first." The revelation had come by accident. While reorganizing her father's office, Olivia had discovered an envelope containing correspondence between her father and Harrison Westfield, Liam's grandfather. The letters detailed a land dispute that had apparently been resolved with her father's purchase of the orchard. When confronted, Liam had reluctantly produced documents of his own, including the original deed showing his family's ownership dating back to 1892. "Why the secrecy?" Olivia demanded. "Was this all just a ploy to reclaim the land?" "No," Liam insisted. "I came here to understand, not to take anything from you." The kitchen door burst open, Scout bounding in, followed by Elena, who was not alone. A man in an expensive suit followed her, shaking rain from his umbrella. "Perfect timing," Elena said. "Olivia, this is Raymond Pierce from Northland Development. He's prepared to make an offer today." Raymond stepped forward, hand extended. "Ms. Morgan. Your sister speaks highly of your dedication to this property." Olivia ignored his hand. "My sister doesn't have the authority to bring developers here." "Actually," Elena interjected, "as half-owner, I do. And given the orchard's financial situation." "The situation is improving," Olivia insisted. "The new grafts are taking, and we've identified several heritage varieties with commercial potential." Raymond's smile never faltered. "We've prepared an offer that acknowledges the property's historical significance. 7 figures, Ms. Morgan. Enough to start over somewhere more viable." "The orchard isn't for sale," Olivia stated firmly. "Perhaps we should discuss this privately," Raymond suggested, eyeing Liam suspiciously. "Mr. Westfield is my partner in this venture," Olivia replied, the word surprising even herself. Elena laughed incredulously. "Partner? Liv, you've known him for what, a month? And now I find out he has some family claim to this land. How convenient." Liam stood. "My family's connection to this orchard is complicated, yes. But my intentions are straightforward. The Morgan Pride apple and the other heritage varieties here deserve preservation." Raymond's interest visibly piqued. "Heritage varieties? Our research indicated the orchard was primarily commercial stock." "Then your research is incomplete," Liam replied evenly. This orchard contains the last known surviving specimens of at least 3 pre-industrial apple varieties, including the Morgan Pride. A calculating look crossed Raymond's face. That could actually enhance our development concept. Luxury homes with historically significant orchards. They're not landscaping features, Olivia snapped. They're living history. The tension in the room was palpable when Scout suddenly began barking frantically at the window. Outside, smoke billowed from the direction of the northern orchard. Fire. Liam was the first to the door, Olivia close behind. They ran through the rain toward the smoke, finding a small utility shed engulfed in flames dangerously close to the oldest section of trees. Working together with garden hoses and buckets, they managed to contain the blaze before it spread to the orchard, but the shed, containing much of their grafting equipment, was destroyed. Hours later, exhausted and smoke-stained, Olivia and Liam sat on the porch steps. Elena and Raymond had departed amid the chaos, promising to return. The fire chief says it was electrical, Olivia said, voice hollow. Old wiring. Liam nodded, but his expression was troubled. Convenient timing. You think it was deliberate? I think, Liam replied carefully, that valuable land makes people do desperate things. The rain had stopped, leaving behind a mist that clung to the trees. In the half-light, the orchard looked ethereal, ancient. Why did you really come here, Liam? Olivia asked, facing him fully. The truth. He was silent for a long moment, then reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded photograph. My grandfather with his favorite apple tree, he explained, handing it to her. The original Morgan Pride. Olivia studied the image, an elderly man standing proudly beside a gnarled apple tree, its branches heavy with fruit. The resemblance to Liam was striking. When he died, Liam continued, his last wish was for me to find out what happened to his orchard. Not to reclaim it, but to know it was in good hands. He met her gaze. And it is, Olivia. Despite everything. The simple truth in his words struck her. Whatever his initial motives, his actions had consistently been to preserve the orchard, not claim it. We need to find another way, she said finally. For both our sakes. In the distance, the moon broke through the clouds, casting silver light across the rows of apple trees, trees that had weathered storms, drought, and now fire. They would endure this too, Olivia decided. They had to. Golden afternoon light filtered through the apple blossoms, casting dappled shadows across the gathering. Wooden chairs, borrowed from the local community center, formed neat rows on the grass near the oldest section of the orchard. At the front, a simple arch woven with apple branches in full bloom stood as a testament to renewal. 6 months had passed since the fire. 6 months of legal battles, community organizing, and unexpected alliances. Now, dressed in a simple white dress with apple blossoms in her hair, Olivia looked out at the faces gathered to witness not a wedding, as many had initially assumed, but the official establishment of the Morgan Westfield Heritage Orchard Trust. Elena sat in the front row, her corporate attire exchanged for a sundress that made her look more like the sister Olivia remembered from childhood. Beside her sat Raymond Pierce, whose presence would have been shocking had the past months not utterly transformed their relationship from adversary to unexpected advocate. As Olivia took her place beside Liam at the arch, she caught Scout's eye where he sat attentively at Elena's feet, a ridiculously festive bandana around his neck. Ready? Liam whispered, looking handsome and slightly uncomfortable in his suit. For the first time in years, she replied honestly. The county judge approached the podium, unfurling the documents that would forever protect the orchard from development. As he spoke about agricultural heritage and community stewardship, Olivia's mind drifted to the remarkable series of events that had led to this moment. After the fire, Elena had unexpectedly withdrawn her support for the development project. Her change of heart came after discovering that Raymond's company had been implicated in suspicious fires at 2 other properties they'd later acquired. Though nothing was proven, Elena's legal instincts had kicked in. Instead of selling, she'd used her legal expertise to help Olivia and Liam create a conservation trust that would protect the orchard in perpetuity. More surprisingly, Raymond himself had turned ally when genetic testing confirmed the historical significance of the heritage varieties. Sensing a different kind of opportunity, he'd helped secure a substantial grant from a historical preservation society, enough to renovate the orchard's infrastructure and establish a research foundation. The Morgan Westfield Heritage Orchard Trust, the judge announced, will preserve these historic apple varieties for future generations, while establishing a sustainable agricultural business and research center. As Olivia and Liam signed the documents, applause rippled through the gathering. What had begun as adversity had transformed into something neither could have imagined, a partnership that honored both their family legacies. Later, as guests enjoyed cider and apple treats under strung lights, Olivia found a moment alone with Liam near the old oak tree where she'd first found him. "Your grandfather would be proud," she said softly. "So would my father." "They might be surprised," Liam replied with a smile. A Westfield and a Morgan, working together instead of fighting over boundaries. Speaking of boundaries, Olivia began, suddenly nervous. "We never really talked about us. After all this is settled." The transition from colleagues to friends had been natural, but the growing attraction between them had remained largely unacknowledged, too complex to address while the orchard's fate hung in the balance. "I was offered a research position at Cornell," Liam said carefully. "Studying heritage fruit genetics." Olivia's heart sank. "That's wonderful. When do you leave?" "I turned it down," he replied simply. "Some research can only be done in the field. Besides," he added, taking her hand, "I've discovered something more valuable here than academic recognition." "The Morgan Pride apple," she teased, though her voice wavered slightly. "The Morgan Pride," he agreed, "among other things." The double meaning hung between them, as fragile and promising as apple blossoms after frost. "I'm not going anywhere, Olivia," he said softly. "Unless you want me to." Instead of answering, she closed the distance between them, kissing him beneath the oak tree where their story had begun. Around them, the orchard breathed with new life, grafted branches emerging from ancient roots, blossoms promising future fruit. Elena approached, clearing her throat dramatically. "If you two are finished, we have guests waiting to toast the new Morgan Westfield partnership." "Partnership," Olivia repeated, looking at Liam. "I like the sound of that." As they walked back toward the celebration, Scout trotting happily beside them, Olivia realized the orchard had never been just about the apples. It was about roots, finding them, honoring them, and sometimes, unexpectedly, growing new ones. The first frost would come again, as it always did. Winters would challenge their resolve, and new threats would emerge. But like the stubborn heritage apples they'd fought to preserve, they had found a way to not just survive, but thrive, together. Some stories, Olivia thought, looking out over the blossoming orchard, weren't about dramatic rescues or grand gestures. They were about finding strength in unexpected places, about seeing value in what others dismissed, and about the quiet courage it takes to nurture something fragile until it can stand strong on its own. Just like the Morgan Pride apple, rare, resilient, and worth fighting for.